Raise a glass for Ron White's return to the island. From hilarious childhood stories to witty tales about life now, you'll laugh along to it. Laugh along to it all when he takes the stage at Treasure Island Saturday, April 19th. Tickets go on sale this Friday. You can get yours TICasino.com. That's TICasino.com.
That's what I say.
We've got coming up at 4:30, Glenn Mason, Mason Your Face, or Mason My Face, and then Kessler is scheduled to join at 5:30 tonight as well. Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line is open, 64686. Brett Blakemore, how old are you?
I'm 27.
Is it possible? And I'm assuming you're going to live a long and healthy and happy life. So let's say you live to be 100.
Okay.
Which I think you'd take, right?
That'd be a good run.
And what are you now?
27.
So that means if you live another 73 years, is it possible or even likely that you will never again see, as a hockey fan, what you saw last night in St. Louis, Missouri for your favorite hockey team?
At this rate, I might see it, once or twice?
Maybe once or twice.
It was unbelievable.
So what we're talking about for the non-hockey fans amongst us is what they in the business call a goalie goal. The Minnesota Wild goaltender on another night where he played well. Early he wasn't really, I think, tested that much, but eventually he was. He scored a goal. Shooting not from the blue line or the center line, but from where? From the goal. He's in the goal mouth on the other side, and he fires a shot that had all of hockey talking because literally how rare is what Gus Bus did last night?
He's the 15th goalie in NHL history to do it, third goalie to do it on the power play.
That's
interestingly
enough.
enough.
Good point. Right.
By the way, this is how it sounded if you want to hear it on the fan right here on the flagship for the Wild.
Navich loads, rockets one in, glove down by Gustafsson. He's going to shoot to the empty net. Philip Gustafsson to the empty net. He scores! Philip Gustafsson with a goalie goal! 8.1 seconds to go! And they mob the Gus Bus back of the net. It's 4-1 Wild. Oh, my goodness.
There it was.
I enjoyed it.
That's a good call. I did not. I was watching the TV broadcast, as it turns out, when it took place on a night where we kind of took care of business, I would say.
Yeah.
I mean, they cut it. They scored. We were up 3-0, and then they got a goal to cut it to 3-1. And then didn't we get, weren't we on the power play for 4 minutes? Wasn't there a double?
Yeah, there's Ryan Hartman got elbowed or high sticked right in the nose.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
A lot of blood.
Yeah.
Got very, very ugly there as well. So a very unusual circumstance. I guess when I was unaware of just how rare it is, it's kind of surprised me because I figured, that goalies are in a situation, I would think, where they'd have a better shot at that, no pun intended, to make it happen. But did you already know that? I guess I was unaware of just how unusual it is. When you're talking about something that's happened 15 times forever, and 3 times you send the power play, that's awfully rare.
Well, it's got to be the perfect storm, right? It's got to be an empty net.
Right.
You've got to have time. A lot of times it'll be if a team rings it around the boards and the goalie stops it, that's their big moment to clear it. But it was actually, he said on the post game that it was Fleury's idea that during a TV timeout, Fleury
took credit.
Is you've got to shoot this thing if you've got the chance. And
what did he do? We know what Flower saw? I mean, I know he's a great hockey mind. He's a great goaltending mind. He's cerebral. Was it something in the way, the patterns that the Blues were using in that situation? What was it that made him so, or is this one of those deals where after the fact that's what we're hearing, but it really wasn't that big of a deal? He didn't really emphasize it to the degree that we're now hearing.
I would assume that he knew, it's going to be a power play for 4 minutes.
Yeah.
They're going to pull the goalie eventually. You might have a chance to get a shot off. And so I think he's just an elite hockey mind, and he kind of saw that the planets might be aligning for Gus Bus.
Did we get we talked about this at length with Louis yesterday, the Spurgeon situation. Is there any update there? What are we hearing on Spurge?
I haven't seen anything. Last I saw, he was just day to day.
Okay.
But I'll have to double check on that.
Yeah, because the obvious concern is they've been kind of mysterious about what it is, and then you worry about was it a recurrence of what sidelined him extensively last season. On the other hand, I mean, look, it's you can't go to DEFCON 1, even though it evokes these powerfully bad memories, right? The idea that we're sort of we're doomed to go Buxton on the bit when it comes to injuries, right? It's hard not to get there. Doesn't mean we're there yet. I mean, the season has barely begun, but I think part of what has driven some of the concern is the lack of detail on what exactly they're dealing with. Because, I mean, I think it's fair to say with Russo, for example, that even if he can't identify sources, if the team is confident that there's not much going on here, they find a way to signal that to him, even if they're not going to get specific.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound like they've done that yet, unless I haven't checked Russo's Twitter today.
Yeah, so I was just scrolling through it today. So they reassigned Damon Hunt, it looks like, to Iowa.
Okay.
So that could be, but yeah, Russo says, depending on Jaron Spurgeon's health, one would think the Wild would still want an extra D for the rest of the road trips. This could be just a cap-saving thing. We shall see. Yeah, and again, one of the injuries is back, right? And so anytime you talk about back, that's another thing where you go, at his age, is a young man, but an advanced age when it comes to hockey. Yeah, it's not like he's 20. Grand in your hand time? It is.
Let's do it.
The Fan and Two Men in a Jug Truck want to give you a shot to put a grand in your hand at the National Cash Contest. Head to KFAN.com, enter the keyword check. Just like in hockey we were talking about. Check. KFAN.com, keyword check.
As I mentioned, Mace in your face, bottom of the hour, and that gives us a nice little short segment to talk about something way too controversial for other programs to even consider. But we don't tiptoe around any of the tough subjects, including the plight of the grilled cheese. That might be next.
If you want to chime in what's happening with your favorite KFAN shows, you can make your voice heard on the Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line. Just let us know what you have to say by texting that message to 64686. That is 64686. Standard text message and data rate supply.
The grilled cheese. A comfortable, long-standing American staple for nice little sandwich. What's the key to a good grilled cheese? What distinguishes between a grilled cheese and a cheese sandwich? It's very simple. Should be one thing. The crispness of the bread. If the bread is not crisp, it's not a grilled cheese just because you call it a grilled cheese. It is a cheese sandwich. Nothing wrong with a cheese sandwich. For a lot of people, they like it. But I delved out today in a hurry, had some American pressure spots to do today. And after that, I said, all right, I'm going to, go over to Panera, a store I like. I'm a Panera guy. Get in, get out, fast food stuff, sandwiches, etc., some soups. Long-standing good relationship with Panera. I have tended to not order their grilled cheese because my assumption was it's not a grilled cheese. But I said today, what the hell? Let's see. Maybe they figured something out. Maybe they've got some new cooking formula that even though they don't have a grill, allows them to call it a grilled cheese. It's not grilled. Cheese was flavorful. Bread was nice bread. But it was soft. It's a cheese sandwich. So, what can we do to get a better, make a better attempt at truth in advertising. Because I would submit on the menu to call what I was given, even though I ate it, I'm not saying it wasn't, it was tasty. It was good cheese, good bread, but it was not grilled. There was nothing crisp about the bread itself. Rest of America okay with this? That we just sort of shrug our shoulders and say, well, they call it a grilled cheese because that's what people want to hear. But really, in places like that where there is not a grill and, microwave, you can't microwave a grilled cheese sandwich. What's going to happen? The bread's going to get softer and softer and softer. It'll get hotter, but it'll get softer. So we'll just wink and we'll let you on the menu call it a grilled cheese, and presumably some people must order it. What's the answer? I don't feel right about this. I feel like the distinction is important enough that there should be more of us rising up and demanding truth in advertising. That on that menu, it should say hot cheese sandwich. If you want to get the grill, if grilled is to mean warm, fine, but call it warmed or hot. Don't call it grilled if there's nothing crisp about it. Am I wrong?
Well, I just have one question that I feel like needs to be asked.
Okay.
That I would not be doing my job as a fan personality if I did not ask.
Mm-hmm.
When you got handed the grilled cheese, did you say to them,
not going to work?
Not going to work.
Well, it was all wrapped up in a bag.
I couldn't tell.
So I could not tell, although I could have looked, and I didn't. I have generally assumed that this is the reality, but I thought to myself, all right, let's just find out. Like I said, because technology changes, maybe they figured something out. I'll give you an example. My recollection of the Starbucks grilled cheese, again, it's cold sandwich and they just heat it up, is it did have at least some substance of crispness to it. So still I wouldn't call it grilled, but we're on a hurry and we can't always go to the grill places we want to where they'd have the more authentic grilled cheese. So that I understand. 612 guy writes, I worked at Panera in high school. The grilled cheese was a kid's menu item and was finished on a panini press. Well, my recollection of a panini, though, is that the bread is relatively crisp, is it not? Am I wrong? I'm not a great panini mind, but I think that's the case. I'm not sure. If it identifies, writes Paul from Burnsville, as a grilled cheese sandwich, who are you to say that it's not?
Can't deny it.
See what you're doing there. Culver's writes, another 612, has a great grilled cheese. Is that true? I don't really want to get into favorite. I don't want to turn this into one of those segments. I get bored with those about who makes the best grilled cheese. I don't need that today. I just need an explanation. Am I the only one that gets bothered by this? Or is the answer, well, just don't order it? And that I know it ain't going to be a grilled cheese, so that's why I don't order a grilled cheese. So stop kidding yourself. But then it shouldn't be on the menu as a grilled cheese. We've got health inspection workers for all sorts of things. I think one of the jobs they should do is objectively, they should be able to assess and evaluate at these various faster food locations. We're going to try the grilled cheese, and we're going to, obviously we're most concerned about sanitation, but we're also going to have to judge, you can't call that a grilled cheese on your menu because it's not grilled, or it doesn't even seem to be fake grilled, where whatever approach you're using from a cooking standpoint makes the bread crisp enough to be what we all know defines a grilled cheese sandwich.
What was the crisp? I mean, was it dangly in your hands? Was it that soft?
Pretty close. Yeah, pretty close.
Yeah.
Pretty close. It was awfully soft. Another 612 guy, my favorite grilled cheese has a ton of melted butter on the bread, so the bread isn't necessarily crispy. It might be crisp on the edges, but the bread is soggy with butter. Okay, I can even accept that, but he's said the key point.
Sounds
it
like
has to be crispy at least on the edges. Yeah, I prefer it crisp throughout. I get the distinction, but there has to be some crispness there. By definition, it has to be grilled or toasted. Hold on. They're coming in really fast here now. It's always, when we strike this kind of nerve, everybody wants to get in on it. I can't find it.
It says, by definition, it has to be grilled or toasted on both sides with a crunch.
Yeah, okay.
It says, don't get me started on what's inside.
Well, that's another issue entirely.
Mm-hmm.
Brent from North Carolina, life is not worth living if you can't get a crisp grilled cheese sandwich. He's right. He's absolutely correct. We should always be able to count on certain staples. I've said this for a long time. I've been in an ongoing battle with Bruegger's. And once upon a time, I love their breakfast sandwiches. Their egg sandwiches. I think they're very good. I also like their bagel size. They're not enormous, which I prefer. A lot of people say that's really not New York style. I say, okay, fine. Then I'll take Midwestern style. But once upon a time, if I ordered my staple egg sandwich at Bruegger's, which is egg, American cheese, and bacon, I could say, by the way, before you grill it in whatever microwave oven you have, would you pop it in the toaster first to get the actual bagel crisp or crisper? They go, yeah, no problem. And then one day, I asked for the same thing. This is after decades. This was unrelated to the cloudy spatzel soup controversy involving Bruegger's, which is for another day because we're going to run out of time here and Mason's going to get bitter if we're late. They said, we don't use the toaster anymore. I said, what? We don't use the toaster. What we can do is we can kind of try to pre-grill it a little bit in the same oven that we ultimately, melt the whole thing in together and get it hot, which I've done because there's no other choice. But guess what that largely does? It heats up the bagel. It actually, to a certain extent, makes the bagel softer, which I, on a sandwich like that, don't want. I want, again, I'm looking for crispness. So, but clearly there's not enough other people bothered by this or who think about this because if there were, they would have brought the toasters back. They said, hey, we're bringing the toasters back. Barreiro, as it turns out, was not the only guy offended by this. Where'd we put the toaster? We put it in the pantry. Get it out of the pantry. Put the toaster back up there in a prominent place. So when Barreiro comes in and says he wants a pre-toasted bagel, we'll pre-toast the thing for him. I may be apparently the only one. That's unfortunate. So I'm a toasting purist. What can I say? We'll come back and chat with Glenn Mason. Lots of good texts coming in here, which I'll try to get to a little bit later. Kessler, a great grilled cheese mind, will join us at 5, and he will file a live report on his trip with Freaky McFreak to the Rose Bowl. He was there for the Gophers come from behind victory over the UCLA Bruins. But Mace in your face on a bye week for the Gophers, but a big week for my Indiana Hoosiers. We'll get to that and more with college football immortality now.
It's time for another edition of Mace in Your Face. Now, along with college football immortality, Glenn Mason, here's Dan Barreiro.
Mace is brought to you by Carey Limo. Carey Limousine. He joins us, does Mace, on the Connecticut Water Systems hotline. I can barely remember what you look like. Even Louie has been in studio more recently than you. He was here yesterday.
Well, he's amazing. You miss me, don't you?
I do.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, in effect, I'm saying it without saying it.
Well, I miss you too, Danny. It's hard for me to say that, but sooner or later I'll be back.
Good.
I'm not exactly sure. I'm kind of a vagabond nowadays.
Maybe you have found your calling, man. Maybe you should be on the road most of the time.
Well, when I get in that car with Topo and I start this road trip and I drive, people can't believe how many hours I drive and distance I travel in one day.
I agree.
And I started thinking maybe I should have been an 18-wheeler driver. I kind of like that.
Well, that'd be a good story. Mace's second career is as a truck driver. God, that'd be outstanding. By the way, for the record, who did you name your dog after?
Oh, that's easy. When I was a kid growing up, I used to watch the Ed Sullivan Show. And for people the right vintage will remember that. Every once in a while, they'd have this guy come on and with this little puppet, a little mouse called Topo Gigio. And I always liked that because he'd get on there and go, Eddie, Eddie, get Ed Sullivan laughing with stuff. But then when I worked in Chicago for the Big Ten Network, my favorite place to eat that I would go to at least once a week was Topo Gigio in Old Town.
Uh-huh.
And I loved that place. I did. I was kind of a regular there. It was like, I was like Norm in Cheers. I'd walk in and everybody'd say, Coach, and I'd sit at the bar and knew all the bartenders. So when I got my new dog, and I was trying to think of an original name, I named it Topo Gigio.
That's good confirmation because I had a source suggest that's who you named it after, and I had forgotten that. And we were just talking earlier in the week that, and I think you could relate to this. Every year the ratings come out and basically like 97 of the 100 most watched television programs are football related, mainly NFL, a couple college football games as well. And I said, that's kind of what the Ed Sullivan Show used to represent. It was the one show that everybody watched, right? Sunday evenings, you're going to watch the Ed Sullivan Variety Show. Now, there are a lot fewer options then, and there certainly are a lot more now, but that was the kind of show that you felt like everybody in the nation, you guys were sharing it with people. We're sharing it with people we don't even know, but everybody was going to watch it. It was that kind of appointment television. It sounds ridiculous today because there's no such thing as that kind of variety show, but that was the case back then, correct?
Absolutely. I think for the younger people, it's hard to imagine that you didn't have the TV on all the time. On a Sunday night, I forget exactly what time it was, 7 or 8 o'clock, Dad would walk over and he'd turn on the TV because the family was going to watch the Ed Sullivan Show. Yep. And then after it was over, he'd turn the TV off. But, some of the shows were good, some weren't. But, any of the new big entertainment that wanted to break through, you had to get on the Ed Sullivan Show, just like when the Beatles came to town, Elvis Presley, whatever it may be. And it was big.
I don't know if you covered this. I was off last Wednesday, and I'm sure you ripped me for that. But
where were you anyway?
I just was trying
to. You told me you were laying low because you thought the hurricane might hit out there where you live.
No, it was more a maintenance day, just kind of a maintenance day every once in a while because I never take the time I have coming anyway, so I figured I might as well take it. But unfortunately, it was the day you were going to be on. But I knew you and Guardsy would be fine. But did you cover the protocol question? Because I don't know if I've ever addressed this with you. The Gophers, we'll get to the UCLA game in a minute, but the week before they win a very entertaining game against USC here, right? USC starts the night ranked 11th in the country. Fans storm the field. So are you okay? I mean, once upon a time, there was a kind of an unwritten rule that, well, if your fans are going to storm the field, it's because you knocked off the number one ranked team in the country or maybe a top 5 team, not the 11. Now, you storm the field if you beat somebody who's got an undefeated record, even if they're not, they may not even be ranked. So does that offend you at all? Or do you say, no, have fun with it. It's no big deal. It's harmless. Or do you think you should hold on to the court storming when you beat like a championship level team, a team that's ranked number 1 or in the top 5?
Well, I don't agree with either thing you're talking about. First of all, I'll say that I think fans storming the field in college has become, ridiculous. It's almost meaningless now.
Yes.
You see, I mean, anybody that beats it's an upset now. The fans just storm the field just like Vanderbilt did against Alabama. Maybe that was. But my point is this. In this day and age, for safety concern for players, coaches, officials, and everything, I don't know why it's allowed. Even when I coached, I brought it up because I don't even remember. There was an incident years ago when Miami of Ohio was playing at Marshall, I believe. And after the game, Marshall won, and they stormed the field, and a fan got into an altercation with an assistant coach. I mean, it was bad. And I just think that because of safety concerns and all that kind of stuff, it should not be allowed. Isn't it amazing? I don't care what happens in pro football. You don't see anybody step on the field. You know why? They go to jail. That's why. Yeah. And I think that the same type of, and especially in this day and age, I don't care if it's an upset of number one or you've won the conference title. I don't think it should be allowed because potentially it could be a big problem.
You raise an important point. My gut tells me that part of the reason a lot of schools have punted on toughening up is not because they don't agree with you, but because they're concerned whether they have enough security. And you know what they're concerned about even more, Mace? A viral video in which security gets a little rough trying to prevent somebody getting on the field. And that becomes the story about whether, folks have gone over the line. And so I think a lot of places have given up the ghost just out of fear for something going wrong in that regard.
Well, I don't know why it is, but I'm going to go back to my point before. The NFL, they've got it solved. And you could just imagine, some places with the unruly fans of some places, if you let the guy, I'll give you an example, at Philadelphia, if you let those guys come out of the stands, you got a problem.
Yes, you do.
Because they're not coming out of the stands just to tear the goalpost down. They want to tear someone's face off.
I can't disagree with that. Speaking of your desire and willingness to drive places, would you consider driving me to Bloomington, Indiana this weekend for the big IU homecoming game? They're kind of coming out party, one could say, this season. A national TV game at 11 a.m., the big game, so to speak, against the Nebraska Cornhuskers.
If I was in town, which I'm not going to be, I'd say, saddle up, Danny, let's go. We're going on a road trip.
Road trip to the Gulch. There. Yeah, that'd be fun.
And I know that you've got on me a number of times about not getting ready to apologize to Indiana for what they've accomplished.
Right.
And I don't know if I need to apologize, but anybody that isn't impressed what's being done there right now, if they beat Nebraska this weekend, and Nebraska is not a great football team, they're a good football team, that's really going to be something. I had a conversation, I'm not going to mention his name, but he was saying, well, they haven't played anybody yet. I said, well, let me tell you, okay. Well, Indiana, how many times have they done what they've done right now? I mean, they've never played anybody anyway, but no one's been able to accomplish what they're accomplished there, and it's hard to win at Indiana. And Kurt Cignetti has done just a great job, and I'm sure everybody's jumping on the bandwagon.
Yeah.
And I like Coach Rule at Nebraska, and I think he's doing a pretty good job. So I don't want to miss him anybody, but I don't want to see Cignetti lose and then have those people jump off the bandwagon. I think he's got something going there.
Well, I actually feel guilty because my good buddy Rick Bozich, who I went to college with, is a columnist in Louisville forever. He still writes for and works for a TV station in Louisville. He's going to the homecoming game. And Gargia said, you should go. Why not? And so I actually already feel guilty that I'm not going. I haven't been to Bloomington in a long time. But I think I got to figure out, if they keep winning, I have to try to find a way to get there. Because I don't have to tell you, it's not a football school. It's, in fact, been a football disaster with some notable exceptions, but not any that have lasted very long. So it is a cool story. But here's the thing, Mace, and it's already happening. It's the concern that, they're not going to be able to keep them. That one of the Florida schools is going to come calling with one of those, $20 million a year deals, lifetime deals. And so Indiana is going to have this, maybe one season that they can not even enjoy the season because in the back of their mind, they're going, what's not going to last? He's going to be gone. Somebody's going to pluck him.
Well, I think it's a legitimate concern because, people that really know what goes on, they look and they know how hard it is to win in Indiana or a Vanderbilt. And you can do the list and they think, if we, whatever that school is, or one of those schools that have a lot of the positives, a lot of money, a lot of facilities, a lot of NIL money, a lot of collectives, a lot of whatever, in a state where there's great players. If he could do that in Indiana, just think what he could do at our place.
Yeah, for sure. A couple people have come up with great ideas here that I'm actually surprised you have not, maybe you have thought of this, but have not really done anything with it. Mace needs to do some sort of On the Road with Mace video podcast. He drives literally around the country with his dog and interviews or has a conversation with interesting people. You should be. I mean, you don't need them. I'm not sure you'd get rich on it, but you don't need the money. You're a good saver. You're doing fine. But what a great second career it could be for you.
Yeah, well, I've been occasionally. I kid some of my dog people. There's one person in particular that she takes off and goes, and I say, she's not here. She's got a bigger, better deal. But anyway, so I've been filming myself, and I've been sending it back to my dog peeps in the morning. Various places,
sure,
giving them a little report. We're Topo on IR and documenting them. It's just a little entertaining. No, nothing historical, nothing educational, but just to mess with them a little bit. But I probably could do that on a bigger scale. I got my hair cut today. It was
you
really
did?
funny.
Are you like a new style?
I'm down in Florida. I got my hair cut.
Yeah.
And anyway, there happened to be a guy getting his hair cut in there. I would say about my vintage, and he was getting his hair dyed.
Oh, yeah.
So I was kidding around. I said, I wonder, maybe I should get my hair dyed. I got not a little gray. I got a lot of gray. I said, I wonder how I would look like that. Okay. And it happened to be a girl barber. She looked at me and she says, don't you even think about it. So anyway, I was thinking, wouldn't that be great if I showed back up at KFAN after being away for a while and I had some jet black hair? What would you think?
That would be a good conversation starter. Sounds like the stylist had a little eyelash for you, Mace.
No, I don't.
I thought maybe that was it. Like, don't you dare! Like, you look great now. You look perfect. Don't even think about it.
Well, I think the point was was kind that don't think about it. She said you'd look ridiculous if you did that.
Well, as you know, some advancing age men, they do it. I think, you're better off being natural. Now, did you go with a different style? You didn't shave your head, did you?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, I just got a regular haircut.
Regular haircut, okay. All right, you're not that fussy. That's good. Gophers, as you know, get to the Rose Bowl, one of your favorite venues, one of my favorite venues. And they, it was a little scary for a while, and there continue to be these powerful reports that the head coach was pretty furious at halftime, understandably so. Gophers come out and score 2 touchdowns in the third quarter, but then they still find themselves needing a late score to either tie or win. They get the touchdown to win it. And in a wonderful backdrop. For a lot of people, Mace, the word is thousands of Minnesotans took the trip, took the opportunity to get to the Rose Bowl. Nice trip to Los Angeles this time of year. I guess you could say all the good things that you might associate with this merger of the Pac-12 and the Big Ten is it does give people a chance to see that storied stadium and watch their team and get out there against a pretty crappy UCLA team.
Well, I'd venture to say there was probably more Minnesota people in the Rose Bowl than there were UCLA people.
Probably right.
And, I brought up the thought, but you got to remember something. If you don't know that part of the country, you got UCLA and Westwood. I mean, that's a haul to get out there to the Rose Bowl where they play.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy. The thought of, students or whatever going out there, and how the traffic can be out in that area, for everybody. It's crazy. That brings me back to when we were in discussions, Tom Moe and myself, pushing to get a stadium on campus. Mm-hmm. And then president at that time, we he was against it, but then he said, well, if we did it with the Vikings, that would be good. Brett McCombs was involved, and they went through the whole rigmarole, the study, and they say, well, we can still do it, but it won't work on campus. Well, where would it be? They said, we could do it in Anoka. I'm not kidding you. Anoka. I mean, I busted out laughing. I said, are you nuts? Anoka, and I have nothing against Anoka.
No, but it doesn't.
Imagine if they entered into a venture with the Vikings and had to play out in Anoka?
Yeah. Not going to work, I don't think. I don't know how much you got to see of your alma mater against Oregon. I didn't see much of it. A very exciting, close game. If you did see it, or even if you didn't, what did you take out of it? What was the lesson from that matchup?
Well, really a good football game. I mean, it came down to, right at the end, and a lot being played about Dan Lanning and his staff coming up, putting a 12th man on the field to defend there. Then they're if you run a play, they're going to stop it, but the clock's going to run, and they're going to take some time off the clock, and for 5 yards they would do it. And I was amazed. At least what I think I saw was that Ryan Day didn't realize on an offensive penalty later in that game on the pass interference that the clock would run on the ready.
Right.
I couldn't believe that, and it was obvious because he was running up and down the sideline complaining to the official. That was disastrous. I had so many people, Dan, say to me in my travels now, say, oh, my God, boy, do those two football teams look good. And I said, well, why wouldn't they? I mean, you got one team, my alma mater, they got a $20 million NIL payroll.
$20 million.
You got the other people in Oregon, and they're big, alum that started Nike, the co-owner of Nike. It's the richest owner of shoe and apparel business. He's got a net worth of north of $60 billion. He says he's told them they've got a blank check as far as NIL. So you have two good programs. One, Ohio State, that's got all the built-in advantages, and then you're giving them all the money in the world to essentially buy players legally, and that's what Oregon's doing.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't they be good unless they're buying the wrong players?
Do you think, on the basis of what you just laid out, do you think the gap between the so-called haves and have-nots in this new form is even greater than the gap between the haves and the have-nots when you were coaching at the University of Minnesota?
Absolutely. It's grown because, I'm not saying that all schools cheated. I'm not saying that. Right. I think a small percentage of them used to do it. I remember Jimbo Fisher, when he was at Texas A&M and they came out with this, he said, oh, we've always done this. It's just legal now, But what I'm saying is that everybody's doing it now.
Yeah.
If you've got the bag of money and you go buy the right players, plus and do a good job of the guys not leaving your campus, and then do a good job of stealing players off of other people's teams that you need, it's a travesty. It really is. I mean, you watch their games, they're exciting, but what's happening behind the scenes, I think, is terrible.
So you're Florida now. We talked to Louie about, so were you there when the most recent hurricane came through, or are you still driving?
No, I was here.
Okay.
I stopped in North Carolina. I guess it was on a Sunday.
Yeah.
It would have been a week ago Sunday. And to see Mitch Browning, you remember Mitch?
Yeah, that's right. You mentioned that.
And I was watching all the hurricane forecasts, and I was contemplating maybe not going to Florida. Then I made a few phone calls, one of which was to Louie, and Louie says, no problem. Just bring it on down. I'm staying right, Francine and I are staying right down here. Hurricane's not coming near us. So based on that advice, I continued south, and we had heavy wind.
Yeah.
We didn't have any rain, so it was a tropical storm without the rain, I guess.
As we wrap up, I don't know if you've heard this or can confirm it or not. I got a text from Austin in Apple Valley. NCAA came out with an interpretation of the rule today saying that a penalty of that nature with under 2 minutes left, the clock should revert back to where they were at the start of the play.
You're talking about the 12 men on the field?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that would make that would eliminate that process right there.
That's true. Yeah.
And the other thing of that, no one would do it because, in essence, it gives the offense a free play.
That's true. 100%
just
true.
because you have 12 men on the field doesn't mean that you're going to stop it. So if the offense, if you had Aaron Rodgers at the helm, heck, he would have called a takeoff and just thrown the ball deep if that rule was in place.
There you go. Well, we hope Minnesota's waiting for your return. I mean, we're going to still be here, so hopefully we see you sometime soon, or you start getting a little bit homesick and you make your way back here. Now, as you know, temperatures are going to start plummeting. Right now, we're fine. I think we're supposed to be in the 70s for the next week, at least, which is nice for this time of year here. I don't have to tell you. But the longer you wait, the more likely it is that you're going to run into some ice.
Well, I don't mind the cold. I don't mind the snow. I don't like the ice for obvious reasons. But, Dan, I've been around a long time, and this is the first time that I've ever taken a trip like this where I've just kind of gone. And wherever the wind blows, I might go. And, I could tell you when I think I'm going to be back, but if something entices me or catches my fancy, I might not be. I
admire you for it, man. A lot of people would love to be have the opportunity, the wherewithal, and the guts to just go ahead and say, screw it. I'm just going to, I'll see you when I see you. Why not? If not now, when? Right, Mace?
Yeah, exactly right. I always say, Danny, life is not a dress rehearsal.
Well done. Safe travels wherever you go, and we'll chat next week.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. That is Glenn Mason. Great stuff from him on a number of subjects. Brought to you by our very good friends at Carey Limo. Kessler will join, and there will be a good amount of Gopher chatter with him. But top 5 at 5 first, which will include what?
NFL injury reports and a championship game to preview.